Hello everybody, my name is EK and welcome back to the channel. So today I have this massive stash of Hopium and I have a massive stash of Copium too, and I have mixed these two together to create some sort of concoction that is now going to allow me to talk about Guild Wars 2's future with a lot of passion. And I'll talk a bit more about why it is so incredibly optimistic. It is obviously not the best state of the game right now, and I have a complete video actually that I might publish. If you guys want to see it, I can publish it. It is fully recorded, and all you need to do is just kind of publish it, and there we go. But I have a video now recorded where I'm breaking down for about half an hour or so, where I'm just talking about the last patch and what my feelings are towards the last patch. And honestly, unfortunately, my thoughts towards the last patch are kind of negative, so that is why I didn't publish it, because I felt like the video was too negative, and I like keeping some level of baseline positivity on my channel, and I don't like publishing videos just to talk doom with you guys, because that doesn't really help anyone, I feel. Anyway, why am I then making a video now where I'm positive? Well, what I hope, and this video is kind of like a prayer. So if you're the religious type, I'm personally not, but if you are, then pray with me, pray to whatever entity that what I'm going to say today is true. So what has happened? Let's do a quick recap here, and then I'll lead us into why I'm somewhat positive right now about Guild Wars 2's future. So in the past 2 years, what's happened? So in February of 2022, we had the End of Dragons launch. Now, before that, somewhere in, I can't recall exactly when, but somewhere probably early to mid 2021, we got the announcement, okay guys, End of Dragons is coming, and there won't be any more content right now. We'll have some filler content with champions, and we're just, all hands on deck for the expansion. So our thoughts were, okay, sure, they can't develop content right now, but we'll get an expansion pretty soon, and we'll have something to play. Now, that worked, and End of Dragons was a pretty decent experience. I have my faults with it. I have my thoughts about what could have been done better, quite a lot actually. But in general, it was a good product. I enjoyed my time with it. Then what happened after is they said, okay, guys, this season 1 thing, which, by the way, I very much agree with. It needed to be re-added to the game. So, having said that, they were like, you know what, we're gonna spend the next 12 or so months trying to reintegrate Season 1 into the game. We will not be developing any other content, but we will be working on reintegrating Season 1 into the game so that players can play a cohesive story that goes from the personal story to Season 1 to Season 2 to Heart of Thorn, Season 3, Path of Fire, Season 4, Iceward Saga, and the Dragons. And I think that was a good call, because, once again, I think it's very good that new players are introduced to the characters and to, everything that is being set up with Scarlet and being set up with Mordramoth and stuff, because it is a core part of the story. And it's kind of like, you start reading a book, you read chapter 1, and you're like, okay, cool, where's chapter 2? And you're like, no. You have to start in chapter 3. But chapter 2 is where the characters are introduced. So, it's very important that that's back, but, that's an entirely different topic, so let me just move on quickly here. But it did mean that Arena Nest, unfortunately, did not really have the time, because, they're not an enormous company like Blizzard. They're not small, but they don't have quite a number of people working on the project as Blizzard, for example, has working on World of Warcraft. So that means that they had to choose, hey, do we want to prioritize Season 1 here? Or do we move into, Season 6, next X-Spec, or whatever other content they could be working on? So we're fine with that. I'm fine with that. I think, having that year where you're developing Season 1, that's good. Season 1 is back. It's done. The book is closed. The entire Dragon Saga is done. Nice. I like it. So, then, what I think happened here is ANAT completed Season 1, and they were like, okay, that is done. And they probably have been talking about this, more behind closed doors, of course. But, from the public, it kind of looked like ANAT was like, okay, Season 1 is done. We don't really have anything developed yet. Gala Delve probably started development, of course, a bit earlier, of course, before they announced it. But Gala Delve didn't have a lot of development time. What I feel like happened, it was like, okay, we have this new structure now. And we have an expansion coming. They even confirmed they're already working on the post-expansion 4 patches, which would imply that the expansion is done. and they're working on the post-patch, which means they're working 9 months into the future, approximately, at least, at the point of writing that blog post, which is before the expansion even launches. So that's a good sign. But they probably were like, okay, you know what? We have this Galadel patch. We could launch it in one go, because I choose to believe that that entire map was practically all done. And they decided to split it into 2 patches because they needed to create some more time for them to really, create the content they need to create in order to be able to deliver on the business practice that they have delivered, or that they have promised us in the blog post. So, they needed to cross the distance from the end of Season 1 being reintroduced to having a full aspect ready. They couldn't work at both at the same time, or at least, I choose to believe that is the case, because otherwise they would have done so. So they needed to create time for themselves to start creating a buffer, to start creating a bit of a backlog, to start creating a content cadence they can now start working on. So what I'm hoping happens now, and this is where all the copium comes in, because obviously, in the past, Ruinnet has mentioned, we're changing up the content delivery system. We're changing up the way we do expansions. We're changing up the way we do Living World. They have mentioned these things millions of times, and every single time I've been like, you know what? I choose to believe them. And obviously, it has bitten us in the ass quite a bit. And this time could be entirely, similar. And I could be sitting here in like a year and being like, well, guys, they announced something new, and I'm optimistic about it. And this is kind of where the whole Hopium meme comes in, because obviously, they have to show us what they want. But the reason I'm so optimistic is because, now we're in a situation where, according to what they have shared, they are working at least 3 patches into the future. So let's say in August, around the anniversary of the game, they launch expansion number 4. Now, that would probably imply that at that point, they are either finishing up the secondary patch, which would be the last patch to the expansion, thus, finishing off the release that comes after the expansion, or even better, they have already started working on the next expansion. So because you have a bit of a backlog, you are then able to keep the content cadence, because you're no longer trying to keep up with demand as quickly as possible. You have a content release schedule, like every 3 months we drop something. It's expansion, patch, expansion. So you have this yearly cycle where you can have 3 months between every single drop. And you can even, because they mentioned, they said 3 to 4 months. So you could even like spread it out a little bit more if you feel like, okay, we're running into a bit of an issue here. We're trying to get the expansion done in time, but we're a little bit slow here. Just drop the next patch a month later. It's fine. It's still within the cadence, but just make sure you have enough resources, enough content ready to go to be within the cadence that you have decided that you're going to develop within, which is 3 to 4 months per patch. And if you're doing that, then I am optimistic that we could go back to a time that is similar to what I think Wooden Potatoes coined the golden age of Guild Wars 2, or at least, so far, which, I think back to very fondly. It is Season 3, into Path of Fire, into Season 4. I mean, I can't recall the exact dates, of course, but what happened is they had Season 3 episodes dropping every single 3 months or something, and then they led that straight into a Path of Fire launch that was, it was kind of treated like it was a patch within a season, because then 3 months after we had the start of Season 4. So you were done with the patch of Season 3. You were like, okay, cool, we're done. I think Aurora dropped then, so you could do Aurora. You would be done with Aurora. The expansion would be dropping. You'd be playing through the expansion. Meanwhile, while you're finishing off the expansion collections and the metas and the achievements and everything included in there, then you move straight into Season 4. And, the next patch is then 3 months after that. And I choose to believe, my optimistic self chooses to believe, that we are going to be reintroduced into a cadence that is very similar to that. Now, we'll have slightly less maps being introduced here, because I did mention they're not going to be adding a new map for every single patch. It is going to be one expansion with 2 maps, and then a 3rd map added on top of it. But, and this is the last layer of the copium concoction that I have been consuming for the past couple of weeks as I have built up to making this video. It is that I believe that Guild Wars 2's maps, as beautiful as they are, ever since season 3 almost. But especially since Ender Dragons, they have been very much underutilized. I feel like there has been a lot of playable space that, you know, you don't go to for story. There's a little bit of exploration there, but, you know, not that much. You don't really go there for the meta, and it's kind of just, it's there. And there's nothing wrong with stuff being there. But when you have a game that is very much story-driven, what I want them to do, and they kind of showcase this a little bit in the last patch, in the Gale Delph Part 2, I want them to really slow down the game. And I'm not talking, you know, stretch a 1-hour session into 15 hours of boring fetch questing. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just, you know, don't have a patch end 1.5 hours after it drops. You know, give players some meaty content. Go slightly deeper. And this doesn't mean that every patch needs to be 10 hours long, but I would like for there to be a bit more dialogue, even if it could be some more written dialogue. And I want them to pad out the playtime by making sure they can use the assets they have created. So, you know, they have sections of the map that they could simply use. Now, obviously, yeah, you're running into issues with, you know, animations. You're running into issues with voice acting and obviously the writing of the story. But I think, you know, now that they have given themselves a little bit more time and they're giving themselves some freedom where they don't have to develop a new map for every single patch, I think it is possible. And that is just what I want to see. So, to summarize, I'm happy. Content cadence, you know, they've kind of created a buffer for themselves. And I'm hoping this doesn't just increase the frequency of the patches, but I am, you know, carefully optimistic that this could also make the quality of the patches better. And by quality, I definitely do mean depth. I want there to be a bit more depth. I think Season 2 is a prime example here. Like, Season 2 didn't really add a lot of content, but Season 2 was remarkably in-depth in comparison to the quality of the overall game back then. And if they can keep that standard and, you know, up it to the quality of Ender Dragons, but with the depth there was in Season 2, I would be a very happy player. Anyway, that is all the copium I have for you today. If you do want to see the video, by the way, as I mentioned at the start, of me sort of like reviewing the last patch, it's like me talking into a microphone for about half an hour, kind of rambling about, you know, why I wasn't the biggest fan of the patch. I do mention some good things about it, I think. I recorded like a week ago, but it's definitely a bit of a downer. If you want to see it, you know, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll probably just provide it. Also, I'm going to leave it into the video here. I'm recording this a couple hours before Diablo 4 launches. You might have seen on my channel, I do have a video talking about my experiences with Diablo 4. I might make some more content about that game because I do quite enjoy it. And if I really get into that game, you know, I like covering more than just Guild Wars. I've tried to dabble into, you know, a bit of League of Legends, which is my primary game next to Guild Wars 2. But I feel like there's too many content creators out there already, so, you know, I don't really want to go, you know, all overboard with that kind of game. But if you like seeing some Diablo 4, also do let me know, because I like covering different games. You know, Guild Wars 2 is a fun game, but I like talking about different things. So, anyway, before I ramble on even further, thank you very much for watching, guys. Have a nice day, and I'll try and upload some more videos. You know, that's the plan. All right, I'll see you later, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye, guys.